Welcome to Sounds Like Portraits. I'm Philippe Ungar. This is a conversation with creative humans. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or Google Podcast. Sounds Like Portraits is also available on Frenchly.us. For Nicole, creativity starts with vulnerability. That means outside her comfort zone. And when she doesn't feel vulnerable, she said, I think there's a problem. Since age 4, she's been training and taming her body in order to memorize and perform the choreographies. It's a lot of work, and then there's a point where the music comes on and her body moves on stage like a machine, like it knows exactly how to be. That's the magic of it on stage. But I ask her, how does the audience interact with the show? That's the question of the week. It's time to listen to her. But to start, she told me what she tried to do all her life.
All my life, I've always tried to push my boundaries. You have to go beyond the edge to realize where you're uncomfortable and push through that. You put your own boundaries, right? You decide where you're uncomfortable, then you go beyond that. I think in the creative process, that's a good spot to be in.
Would you say that the creative process starts outside your comfort zone? Would you put it like this?
Yes. If you're too comfortable, you're not in the right place. Once you get too comfortable, then you have to move on and do something else that will teach you a new lesson and give you new tools.
Being outside our comfort zone and being vulnerable, is it the same thing?
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely being vulnerable on stage, either if I'm a performer or a creator, if I'm leading a show, leading a rehearsal, leading a class, or performing for others. There's always that state of, am I going to do the right thing? And that kind of fear triggers new things. And also in the creative process, if you don't make that extra step and trying this idea that you might think is ridiculous, then you won't be able to go beyond that. If you don't try, you're not going to reach anywhere. I'm always feeling vulnerable every time I have a show to do. And once I am not, I think that there's a problem there. I should always feel a little unbalanced. So.
How did you come to dance?
I think personally, I knew I wanted to do it. I knew this is something, it brought me to life, and I would create shows at home, and I would choreograph my own, little performance for my family, and then it just kept going. But there was a moment where, at the age of 16, when everyone goes out and parties, I decided to go to the books and start studying like a maniac so I could train at night, then just train myself personally to keep going, working on my own.
So it's a kind of sacrifice?
Ooh, no. Sacrifice. Well, yeah, I sacrifice a lot for my work, my passion, and I'm lucky to have a husband who's as passionate as me, so he's also as driven. But it has had consequences in the past to have to give up certain things, but now I can enjoy it as much as I want. I'm still making sacrifices, just no holidays. It's just all work.
What did you feel the first time you performed on stage? Do you remember that moment?
I still remember the choreography that I was taught when I was 4. And it was a ballet routine, and I was a snowflake, and it was, it's hilarious to think about it now, but I don't remember how I felt, but I still remember it, and it's years later. So it must have stuck in a way. I do remember how I feel now when I'm performing, and it's so wonderful to be able to take a whole crowd into the state of in a world, you you're taking them on a journey. And when I make work and when I choreograph, my whole, like the idea of creating an arc in a work is all about helping the audience to join you on that emotional journey.
Performing a choreography is a demanding challenge for the body. Is it about taming your body?
Yeah. You train your body at a very young age, in my case, since the age of 4, to remember the alignment and the technique so that when you're on stage, you can just perform. You tame your body technically, and then you tame your body to memorize the choreography so that you are free on stage. There's a point where, you know, the music comes on and your body moves like a machine. It's like it knows exactly where it needs to be. And then you can add all of the charisma. Yeah, it's really wonderful. And right now, performing every night is a different audience. So the fact that I can rely on my body and just connect with each audience in a different way every night is, yeah, it's awesome.
That's impressive. How do you see your own body? Is it your instrument? Can we put it like this?
It is, but I don't separate my body from my mind and my emotions. Everything's linked. Like if emotionally I'm unstable, my body will feel unstable. Like everything's linked. It's not just this outside instrument like a piano or guitar. It's super, super connected to the mind and the emotions.
So how do you prepare yourself emotionally just before getting on stage?
Meditation, listening to music. I try to be as true to the character or the direction of either myself or the choreographer who I work for, so that it's very important to me to be 100%. You know, if I'm laughing for real.
What happens if you have to perform with people you don't feel comfortable with on stage?
You stay professional, and you make it work. I mean, there are some situations where, yeah, you have to deal with it, and it kind of tweaks the show in a certain world for you. But I think I still stay true to either the character and how I behave within that world. And if the partner who I've been working with, I think everyone's trying to be professional at this level. There's no place for extra negative, energy. So maybe I've been lucky.
Do you look at the audience when performing on stage?
It depends the work. If the work demands that, yes. And it's so fantastic to be able to break that fourth wall. It's and I think as an audience member, it's exciting that suddenly the performer sees you for who you are. And for the company who I work for right now, Company XIV, the audience is very close to the stage, and you can go up to them and whisper in their ears, and it's part of that show. And it's wonderful. I think it creates this immersive world, and it's exciting for everyone.
But what do you see when you look at the audience?
Well, it's exciting, but it's also scary, I think. It's scary if you have a full audience or just a handful of people. I think the moment you see them, actually, that it does create a bigger fear. I've worked at the opera, and in the opera you have a separation between the stage and the audience. There's the orchestra pit. You can't really see them. But lately...
So you feel protected?
Yeah, in a certain way. You're this other world that they experience from far. But I've worked in other ways where you perform right in people's faces. And yeah, sometimes they don't connect with what you do. And sometimes they do. And you have to work with that. And you have to understand, what the mood is to be able to carry them through the journey that you're presenting them.
How can you do to transform the mood of the audience? What can you do?
It's super simple things like a wink or some kind of something that will take them out of, oh, you're not just sitting there in the audience on your chair. I actually see you, like I see you, and there's not that wall like at the opera. And that's the most fun when that happens, when they realize, oh, actually that they're winking at me. There's something that happens with their expression, which is so wonderful. And if they're confused, then you can play with that as well. Like you can actually tap into making it a comedy. And
So that's a kind of improvisation. It's not written.
it is not. No. Again, I think it depends the choreographer or the director. Some choreographers want you to do exactly what they say, and there's no space for that extra character or improv. But lately I've been working with people who allow that, and it gives me so much freedom to express myself and, again, connect with people.
Your connection as a performer depends on the audience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A Wednesday night audience is not as fun as a Saturday night audience, and you feel it right away. And
At the first second.
yeah, they walk in and you feel it already. Or a matinee show. Everyone's kind of a little sleepy, or just they haven't had drinks, or dinner. And so it's up to you to change that and really bringing them into this other thing, this world.
We're talking about improvisation. What kind of risks do you like to take on stage?
I guess it's connecting with the audience. I'm a dancer, right? So as dancers, you are told to do steps, to learn choreography. But to be able to play with some kind of acting and some kind of character building, that's all on me. And as a choreographer and as a performer, that's where I'm at right now. Sometimes people don't connect with it, and you have to deal with that too, and it's super awkward. And but that's the most fun. And again, working with audiences that are on a Wednesday night or Saturday night or Sunday night, those little moments of improv change completely. So that's really fun, and it's a risk to take, and it could be a big flop or not. And if you don't take that risk, then you'll just perform the same thing over and over, and there's not going to be that kind of journey for you also as a performer. If you're performing every night, for 6 months, the same show, like how do you make the show interesting to you? If it's like connecting with the audience or making jokes with your fellow dancers on stage, and then suddenly, for the audience to see a relationship with, the performers connecting on stage, then they can relate to it even more.
So it's about being present on the stage. It's all about that.
Yes. Yeah. You can tell when someone's not fully committed. Yeah, you have to be. You have to, step on stage one more time and think, this is the first time I'm doing this. I'm putting this costume for I don't know how many times I've put it on, but it's the first time that they're seeing it. Yeah.
When you have to act on stage, you have to use a lot of as if. You have to use a lot of as if phrases for yourself.
It's as if they see it for the first time. It's as if I'm doing this. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for them. They should be able to see an arc again. Otherwise, it stays on the same tone. And then it stays on the same tone for you as a performer. And it's hard to be stuck in that world.
Have you learned something essential about yourself from your performing process?
Yes, more and more now, after many years of performing for many different people.
How many years?
Well, since the age of professionally, a little over 10 years, I guess. But as for the career as a dancer, that's quite a lot. So what I've learned about myself, I think I had to trust myself more. There was a moment where the decisions that I made were as valid as my execution. And then not doubting myself as much, because it's so easy, especially in the field where you're constantly reevaluating yourself, auditioning, applying for things. And yeah, it's so easy to kind of doubt yourself, and then that translate in your performance. So really, embracing every challenge, I think, and like they say, fake it till you make it, but it's really true. Like when you're performing, if you make a mistake, if you show that you made a mistake, then people can tell. If you pretend that nothing happens, no one will be able to know.
Can we take an example?
I was performing in this opera, Tannhauser, in Chicago at the Lyric Opera. And on our very last performance, we have this long metallic table that rotates on stage, and it's huge. And it rotates because we push the table. And the last night of the run, one of the ends of the table was stuck, and we rotated the table, and it was going towards the orchestra pit. And it was a very obvious, oh my God, and what is going to happen? But if no one had seen the show before, we saved the table. Luckily, nothing happened. No one got injured. But if you had seen the show before, you could tell, the table is not supposed to be going this far. For people who've never seen the show before, it's an exciting, like, whoa, maybe this will fall in the orchestra pit. But again, like you make it work. You stay in character, and you push through. Yeah, those are moments to remember. All the mistakes and how you cope with them. Right now, I work for a company that has a lot of quick costume changes, and a lot can happen. Like something can fall off on stage, and the audience can, see your shoe fell off. And then how do you cope with that? You're dancing with one shoe. And it becomes a thing. It becomes part of the act. And again, I'm lucky to work for directors and choreographers who allow that kind of coping with a mistake kind of situation. Others might fire you, I guess.
As a choreographer, what do you start with? What's the starting point when you're working on a new piece?
So if I'm working with dancers, I start with improv. I need to see them move, especially if they haven't danced together. And so how they interact with one another. It kind of feels, especially if they don't know each other, it kind of feels like a first date. And who's going to get along with who, and who do you partner for partnering. And it's kind of a hilarious thing, and especially if there's some partnering when you're touching each other. There needs to be at the very beginning of the process a moment where there's an exercise of leaning into each other and allowing each other to hold each other and support each other. And then I start teaching some phrases so that they can learn my qualities, and my movement.
So your starting point is not a story, a narrative. It's the human element. It's the performers on stage.
Yeah, I can come in with. I do have ideas when I'm at home. I'm like, oh, I want to do this, and I do come in with those points. But I also need to look at who are my collaborators, and think sometimes they might not relate to it right away, and I need to bring them on that journey, and that takes a couple of rehearsals. And then as the process keeps going, I come in with pictures and with different tracks of music and say, okay, you're going to do your solo to this classical music, and then I put hip hop and see what happens, if it works or not, but kind of playing with the unbalance of things to see what will eventually fit.
When you see it works or not, you're the judge.
Yes. Yes. I was just talking to one of my dancers about this yesterday. She was saying how she loves that she's able to speak up her mind in my rehearsal, but eventually I will decide yes or no. And so there's I think it's important to have one person to decide and not multiple, just so that we can keep working. Then I step out and I have to see how the story works, and I think of it visually, and where the bodies go in space and what that represent as a viewer, not just as a performer. And also, depending on the stage we're performing in, it will change completely the world.
Being a performer, is it something that helps you to create your choreographies?
Yes, I think I can still move. I'm still young. There are other choreographers who don't stand up from their chair. I think it's especially with the people that I'm working with, everyone's super physical. And for me to stand up and say, this is the quality that I want, and this is, the pathways of the body and space, I think it links everyone up to know that that's the style. It helps me express what I want, for sure. Yeah.
Would you make a parallel between you and your body as a performer and you and your dancers as a choreographer?
Yeah. It's a way also, if they don't have someone showing what the work is about, there's no way that they will know. And sometimes we don't use mirrors in rehearsal, so they have to look at me. They can't look at a reflection of their bodies and others in space. They have to see what it is. And I mean, eventually our bodies are all made differently, and you kind of need to work with what you have. And the last piece I had a guy who was 6 foot and a girl who was 5 foot, and I paired them together, and they had to move in the same way, and the duet was all about their height difference,
the contrast.
Yeah, but having me there and explaining, it makes everything better for them.
How would you describe your style as a choreographer?
I'm a contemporary choreographer. I try to push the boundaries of physicality and theatrics in a way that could be explicit in terms of the themes that we're exploring, or super abstract, and playing with the idea of the audience, figuring out what it means to them, what the piece means to them.
Do you expect anything from an interview like this one?
I think this exchange is what I expect. I don't expect anything from, or I hope, actually, no, I lied. I hope people who are listening could relate to the different aspects of my world.
I'm gonna leave the room. Please hold the microphone and add whatever you want to the interview.
For the reminder of the time that I have left with the microphone, this is exactly what we talked about earlier, being vulnerable, not knowing that if I'm talking to a group of people or one person. As a dancer, we are trained to execute movement, and we are not told to speak our minds. There's a hierarchy that has been built for many years, and it still exists. So this is quite frightening, to be able to voice my thoughts, and it's something I'm still working on as a performer, choreographer, dance teacher, to be able to express in a truthful way without stumbling like I just did. Yeah, and embracing those stumbles and making something out of it, like in a performance. I'm done. So yeah, being stuck with a microphone, suddenly you have to say something. It's frightening.
The microphone is like a mirror.
Yeah, but if you're in front of a mirror, you see your body. Whereas a microphone, you hear your own voice.
Or nothing.
Or nothing. Yeah. It's so easy to make mistakes in movement and kind of make up the mistake in a way that it's blurred. Whereas like if you stumble through your words, it's very clear for the listener.
That's the reason why the podcast is called Sounds Like Portraits. It's about sounds.
Yeah, it is quite frightening. But again, accept the challenge.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Philippe.
Thank you, Nicole, for sharing your story. It was Sounds Like Portraits, a podcast by Philippe Ungar. Please visit soundslikeportraits.com and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or Google Podcast. Music Charmeuse de Serpent, composed and conducted by Olivier Glisson. See you soon for the next episode.